Welcome in, everybody, to draft week. We made it. By the time you're watching this video, going to be about 3 days away from the NFL draft. I can't wait, man. So excited. I do want to remind you that I will be live here on YouTube for the entire draft. I know you got a lot of options to consume, a lot of great streams, a lot of great content creators. So it means a lot to me. If you're picking me, you want to hang out with me and watch the draft, going to be a ton of fun giving my live reactions and analysis. Please do hit that like button down below on this video as well. And let's get into my guys here. And I'm going to do my not my guys tomorrow. So basically my guys are, if I'm in a NFL front office or a war room, these are the guys I'm pounding the table for. Call them sleepers, if you will. If my GM's about to take someone else, I'm saying, hold the phone, hear me out. This guy is really good. We need to consider him here because I don't want to miss out on getting him a round or two later. Now, I am going to ask for a little bit of context, for you to consider context, a little bit of nuance here. There's going to be players on this list that 3 years from now, you could put it together as a tweet and be like, oh my God, you had this guy as a my guy in your draft. You have no idea what you're talking about. No, I recognize some of these players aren't going to work out. Some of these guys are 6th, 7th round picks. I'm not advocating you take those guys in the 2nd or 3rd round. I just think a lot of these guys, you know, some of them are first rounders, but some of them are undrafted caliber players, like guys that I just think are worth a dart throw ahead of some other players that I definitely am higher on than other people. So just wanted to ask for a little bit of nuance with this conversation. But yeah, let's get into it with my guys. We're going to start with the quarterbacks. Number one scares me to lead the video off with this, and that's Sam Howell. Because I think Sam Howell is the definition of a guy that could totally suck or actually turn into a decent starter. But the reason Sam Howell is a my guy for me is I think the gap between him and Matt Corral, who's getting a lot of talk, and even the gap between him and Malik Willis is marginal. In fact, I actually give Sam Howell a better grade. Now, a lot of this just depends on landing spot and scheme and surrounding talent and all this stuff with all these quarterbacks. But basically for me, give me Sam Howell at the top of the 2nd round over spending a top 10 pick on Malik Willis any single day of the week. I think he's 90% the athlete. He's a really explosive runner with a lot of ability to break tackles. I think his arm talent is comparable, and a lot of the weaknesses in their game are similar as well. So I just think the narrative is interesting. Obviously, Malik Willis, a little bit of a stronger arm, a little bit faster. The upside surely is a little bit higher, but man, I don't think the gap is that wide. And then my other guy is Carson Strong. When I made my quarterbacks video in January, was it, or early February, he was actually my quote-unquote number one quarterback because at the time, you know, the medical stuff was less and less available. And when I came away from his tape, I truly felt like he was the best quarterback in this class. I thought his arm talent was superior, his accuracy, his decision-making, his comfort level in the pocket. No, he's not the athlete. He doesn't have the mobility of pretty much anybody else in this class. But similar to Mac Jones last year, he was able to navigate pressure while keeping his eyes downfield, which is more important than cleaning, bailing from clean pockets like Willis or Sam Howell do. So, or even Kenny Pickett. So I really did think he was the best quarterback in this class until it became revealed that he has these horrible knee injuries that he's trying to recover from. You could see the velocity drop off in the 2nd half of his season at Nevada. And it's just a mess as far as his injury concerns go. It's completely taken him out of the conversation with these top guys. Whereas 2-3 months ago, he was right in it with all of these dudes. So I do think, I should say 4 or 5 months ago, like going back to maybe October. But yeah, the medicals are the big check there, right? And I don't have that information, but I do know that if you can get a healthy Carson Strong, end of the 2nd, early 3rd, you let him redshirt for a year and get that knee, they're putting a cadaver cartilage into his knee, and odds are his knee will accept that cadaver cartilage and he can get back to full speed. And I think you're stealing a guy that would probably be a first-round pick if he was able to go through the pre-draft process without any injury stuff related to him. So Carson Strong. And then I've got Cole Kelley on here, and this is an example of where I want the nuance. I think there's a 5% chance Cole Kelley becomes anything in the NFL. But if you're sitting there in the 6th, 7th round, and you've got a situation where you can take a project at quarterback with a really strong arm, a guy that showed good development from year to year, good head on his shoulders, he's the kind of gamble I would take. If I'm taking a quarterback in the 6th or the 7th round, he's my guy. So again, I recognize he's probably going to suck in the NFL. But when you're getting into that 6th, 7th round, he's a gamble I think I would take. And then my running backs, I was looking at the consensus rankings. Shout out to Arif Hassan. Put together a consensus board, which helped me put this list together to see kind of where I'm high and where I'm low on these guys. But Kenneth Walker, actually the consensus number 1 running back in accordance to, media, NFL media at large. And I personally disagree strongly on that. I think Breece Hall is a clear-cut number 1 running back. He's the only guy I'm really thinking about definitely in the first round. He just is the whole package: size, speed, vision, receiving ability, power, elusiveness. I think he stacks up with someone like Najee Harris last year, or Travis Etienne last year. So for me, he's a my guy because I don't think I think the gap between him and Kenneth Walker is significantly larger than it's currently being discussed. Then I have a couple kind of mid-round running backs that I really like to have kind of top 10 starter upside. So Pierre Strong Jr. out of South Dakota State, really fun player, just incredibly elusive and fast, a little bit older, coming from lower level of competition, but I do think the traits will translate. You can get 4 good years out of him and let him go. Very similar style of runner to LeSean McCoy, and similar size and physical skills. He's actually a little bit more athletic, so he's definitely a my guy. And Zamir White out of Georgia. It's funny, I'm actually lower on a lot of Georgia players, but not Zamir White. I felt like his runs were actually pretty poorly blocked up most of the time when I was watching him. But I like his physical tools. I think he showed a lot of good flashes of one-cut vision. And if he gets better blocking at the next level and into a good power run game where they can give him a gap to go through, whether it's duo or just straight up power with a pulling guard in front of him, I think you're going to see a much more productive back at the next level. He has straight line speed. He runs through arm tackles and has some of that home run hitting ability that you always look for in a top running back. So there's my running backs. And then wide receiver, my guys. I'm also going to put Garrett Wilson at the top of this list because I floated out the idea that the Jags should consider taking him number 1 overall. I think he's the best receiver in this class. I think he's the one guy in this class that I feel very good saying he's going to be an X wide receiver that can really run the entire route tree, deep, intermediate, and short, be a great run after the catch threat. I compare him to Stephon Diggs, and there's usually not this massive gap for most people between Garrett Wilson and everybody else. I think he's clear-cut above everyone else. I think the Jets would be smart to think about him at 4. Hell, I think he'd be a better pick at number 1 overall than taking, say, Trayvon Walker for the Jags, who need to help Trevor Lawrence next year. So Garrett Wilson is a my guy. Even if it sounds silly, everybody loves Garrett Wilson. I think based on the conversations I've had, I love him a little bit more than a lot of people. And then I also included Jahan Dotson. Now, there might be some people out there that are even higher on Jahan Dotson, but for me, I just feel so incredibly confident that he's going to be a super productive receiver at the next level. I don't know if he's ever going to be a number 1, but I think you can spend a first-round pick on Jahan Dotson and feel pretty damn good about it. He is, I think, not that far off of what Chris Olave does, just being a receiver that maybe isn't Garrett Wilson as far as upside with the catch radius and the long speed, But man, he can run every single route. He comes down with a ton of tough catches. He's really good after the catch. He's tough over the middle as well. Like when he's running crossing routes and in routes, and he knows that safety's coming downhill and he's going to get just absolutely popped, he will hold on to the football really well. It actually reminds me a lot of Emmanuel Sanders in that way. So Jahan Dotson, I felt like I had to put on this list because I think he should be in the mix with even like a Chris Olave or Drake London, especially. I think, I feel about similarly with Jahan Dotson as I do on, say, Drake London. Excuse me. Then one more receiver here, Tyquan Thornton out of Baylor. I only recently got to Thornton because no one really talks about him all that much. But, man, I when I got to his evaluation, I was expecting Anthony Schwartz. Like, yeah, he ran a 4.2 something at the combine, but he's just a track star. Like no one really was talking about him until it got to his 40 time. And I got to his eval. I'm like, okay, this guy scored 12 touchdowns. He had almost 1,000 yards last year with bad quarterback play. That's interesting. And then I load up his tape and I'm like, okay, he's got a pretty nice release package. He's good with his feet. He has good routes. He's got a little wiggle at the top of his routes, even on out routes and comebackers. And then I'm like, okay, he's got smaller hands, I guess. Did he drop a bunch of balls? No, he had 2 drops in his last season. Has never had issues with drops. And I'm like, okay, why isn't this guy basically in the same conversation with like Christian Watson? Who it's like, okay, this dude's super fast. You can use him as a vertical threat, and you hope he develops in other ways. Now, I get it. Garrett Wilson's a little bit Christian Watson's a little bit bigger, and I do have Christian Watson over Tyquan Thornton, but if Anthony Schwartz goes in the 3rd round of the NFL draft, Tyquan Thornton, I don't think is getting out of the 2nd. And if you miss out on Jamison Williams, who is a better player, I'm not trying to, say anything crazy here, but if you miss out on Jamison Williams or even Christian Watson, you can take Tyquan Thornton in the 2nd round, and I think he can be a Z receiver who takes the top off of your defense and be a good deep threat for you. So he's definitely my guy. Now we've got the tight ends. No shocker here. Charlie Kolar has been one of my biggest my guys this year, and I've not hid from it. He was my number 2 tight end. If you haven't checked out my tight ends video yet, he's an excellent route runner. He has, to me, the best feel as a receiver in this class. He just has fluid movement ability. He's natural at boxing guys out at the catch point. Really smooth, like sitting down in zones. He just had a better general awareness as a receiver that you just didn't see in any of these other tight ends. And I think that's incredibly valuable. But then you look at his measurables, he's over 6'6". He's literally almost 6'7" if you round up. He ran a 4.62 40. All of his, agility scores were good. He jumped 36.5 inches. What am I missing here on Charlie Kolar? He produced. He was one of the most productive tight ends over the last few years. He drew double teams for Iowa State. Oklahoma was literally, boxing him with slot corners and safeties to try and take him out of Iowa State's passing game. Again, what am I missing on Charlie Kolar? Why are people talking about him as a 3rd or 4th round guy and not a top end of the 2nd round guy? I think he's an absolute steal. No, he's not a great blocker. He's a poor man's Travis Kelce, and if you compare those two guys as far as their measurables, like their testing numbers, they're almost identical. So I don't know. I'm not going to go as far as saying I think he's going to be Travis Kelce, but if he does become Travis Kelce, who was a 3rd round pick for the Chiefs, I sure as hell am not going to be surprised. And if he goes to the Chiefs as a Kelce replacement, I think he could give you another 10 years of that. So yeah, Charlie Kolar is awesome. Not enough people are talking about him. I have a few more tight ends here. It's a good tight end class. Chigoziem Okonkwo, much more scheme dependent here. Needs to go to kind of one of those wide zone Shanahan offenses that runs a lot of 12 personnel and uses kind of that H-back wing tight end role. but he's perfect in that spot. He's a good blocker on the perimeter as a lead blocker. He can come across the line and kind of, down block on inside zone on the other side. You can give him jet sweeps on play action. He's lethal, like leaking out on crossing routes. He converts into a runner after the catch. Really fun player. He makes my guys list, but he has to go to the right spot. And then Jake Ferguson out of Wisconsin made the top 5 for my tight end video as well. And I think he's Dalton Schultz. I think he's a complete spitting image of Dalton Schultz coming out, who I thought the Cowboys made a really good pick when they took him. And I see an almost identical prospect both on the field and off the field. His physical measurables are strangely identical. Really good in the short game, in routes, out routes, option routes, pushes off linebackers in subtle ways without getting flagged. And he's nifty after the catch. He's a competent run blocker, good hands. I think you're getting a starting caliber tight end in Jake Ferguson sooner rather than later. And then even a little bit further down the board, someone I haven't talked about too much yet is Austin Allen out of Nebraska. He's a guy that's dealt with some injuries, but this dude is 6'8". There are some trees out there in this tight end class, but Austin Allen can scoot a little bit. You expect a guy at this height to just not even look natural out there at all. There's obviously a little bit of that. That's probably why people aren't talking about him as much. But I do think he can move, and his testing numbers were adequate for a tight end, but he's 6'8". So he's a red zone threat. I think he uses his size well as a blocker, and you can get him, 4th, 5th round, if not 6th round. Health is an issue, and with his size, it could just be a medical thing, but yeah, he's an interesting prospect that I think is worth a gamble on, just to get someone of that size that can actually move and be a weapon in the receiving game. If nothing else, in the red zone and as a second tight end that can block, there's value in that on day 3. Then offensive lineman, I have Luke Goedeke out of Central Michigan. And it's not that I think he's going to be a superstar, but I think you're getting a valuable piece for your offensive line. I think he can start at guard. I think he's probably a guard if he's going to become a full-time starter. But he has really good technique at tackle, and I think can hold up if you have a starter go down. So he gives you flexibility, and you can get him in the 3rd or 4th round. He's a really physical run defender. I was watching a lot of Bernard Raymond, obviously, and Goedeke just catches your eye. He's downfield mauling dudes. He's tough. He's always right off the ball, in guys' faces. He even has some power to drive guys as a run blocker. So, yeah, I think he probably is a guard, but every team needs even if he's not a starter, every team needs a 6th offensive lineman, because now in a 17-game season, you're not going to have everybody stay healthy all year. It's just not realistic to expect that. So to have a 6th man that can play either tackle spot, either guard spot, and really, maybe not crush people, but hold his own and not be a problem, there's way more value in that than people realize. It's just not exciting because he might not start, but I think he could start at guard as well. And then I have Spencer Burford out of UTSA. And he's just a really athletic guy with good pass protection technique. I think he does need to add a little bit of play strength if he's ever going to start. But I like his career trajectory. And as a, 4th, 5th round pick, I think you're getting maybe a starter someday on your offensive line. Then Joshua Ezeudu, I didn't get to him until later. He played mostly guard at North Carolina, but I actually have him as a tackle on my board. Kind of Braden Smith-esque there, except Ezeudu has all of the measurables you look for. He's an athlete and has arm length. And he actually played some tackle at North Carolina as well. And if you put any stock in PFF grades, those were his better graded games. But I did go and watch the tape as well. And I really think he is a quicker guy more than a strong player, which to me, as long as he has the arm length and the size to do it, which he does, to me, he projects better as a tackle at the next level. I think North Carolina was using him a little bit out of position there. And again, he had his best moments at tackle. I'm not trying to just put the whole PFF grade argument in there. It's just a data point. But yeah, I like him as maybe a 4th or a 5th round pick, as maybe a little bit of a developmental tackle, because he's going to have a little bit of a transition period there. But I do think he could potentially develop into a starter. And then I'm actually going to stick in UNC, or at UNC, for another tackle here who literally nobody talks about. He's not in any of these draft simulators. He was not a combine invite. I got through all of these tackles in February, and Jordan Tucker out of UNC probably not even going to get drafted because he did not have a good workout. He's not a good athlete, but he's really strong. I thought he was excellent with his hands. He reset really well against power and can move people in the run game. Again, not a great athlete. You can't draft him, or you can't put him in a wide zone offense and expect him to reach block defensive ends and strong side linebackers. It's not going to be a fit at all. But as an undrafted pickup, he definitely stands out, or even a 6th or 7th round pick. He, as I'm grinding through all of these day 3 tackles, I did 40 something of them. I got to Jordan Tucker very late, and he just stood out. I was like, that looks like an NFL player. That looks like someone that could come in and hold his own right away. Don't know if he'll ever be a starter, but tackle depth at the end of the draft is valuable, especially as an undrafted pickup. So just someone that stood out to me. Nothing crazy. Probably will never turn into anything, but just keep an eye on him. And then interior offensive lineman, I only have one guy, and that's Zion Johnson. It's not that I don't like a lot of the interior offensive linemen in this class. I just don't know if I'm so much like, that's my guy, draft him early, like all this stuff. There's some good interior offensive linemen in this class. Check out my video on him I did last Thursday, I think. But Zion Johnson is obviously a my guy. He might be one of my biggest my guys I've ever had. I think he's a top 5 player in this class. I think he's a near perfect offensive guard prospect. I've talked a lot about him on this channel, so I'm going to hold back for now. You guys can check out even my latest mock draft or the interior offensive line video if you want to hear more about him. But yeah, Zion is my dude in this class. Then we get to the defensive side of the ball, and we're going to start with the interior group. So Travis Jones is my guy out of UConn for me. And for me, this is a large part about something I'm going to talk about with the not my guys. And that's that I just think the depth in this class sucks. Like, it's just really hard to find guys at interior defensive linemen that can make an impact. So you're going to push a guy up like Travis Jones that has a very safe projection. I think he's going to defend the run as a starter right away. And he has enough athletic ability. He actually tested really well, tested better than I would have expected, but still moves well on tape. At the Senior Bowl, he was getting off the ball, bull rushing dudes, has hammers for hands, like just boom, right into your chest. And yeah, I think I would actually think about him in the first round. I really would, because there's only a few guys in this class that I think can even see the field right away. It's a terrible interior defensive line class. For similar reasons, Neil Ferrell, I don't see him having third down potential like Travis Jones has. Ferrell does have quicker feet and a nice swim move that he used occasionally to pick up some wins on tape. But for the most part, I think Ferrell is a 2-down run defender. But like I said, hard to find in this class. He did it at LSU for years. I think he can step in and hold his own early on as a nose tackle and a run defender. And then way down the board is Jordan Jackson out of Air Force. Project type of dude, really like lengthy, athletic guy, but was actually, by the metrics, the most productive interior pass rusher in college football last year. Had like 50 pressures, got some sacks. Like he has some different rush moves. He uses his quickness really well. Total project. You're talking about a 7th round pick here, someone that might need to spend time in the practice squad, but a good athlete, tested really well, productive in college, coming out of Air Force, where I'm not going to act like an expert on what sort of, resume, right? Daily activities the Air Force Academy has these guys on. I would imagine he's got to stay in pretty good shape and, can't really get up to 310 pounds. I don't know. I don't know. I genuinely don't know the Air Force, how that all works. But I do know he's coming into the NFL. He produced, he's an athlete, and he's gotten about 10 to 15 pounds bigger every year. So I think he's an interesting 7th round pick to just kind of see what he looks like removed from that environment. I don't know. Maybe someone in the comments can explain to me a little bit better kind of how the student athlete rules go at a program like that. But then we have the edge group. Kayvon Thibodeaux is my guy. I think he's the number 1 edge in this class. We're spending all of this time talking about Travon Walker and Aiden Hutchinson. For me, we're overthinking it. Kayvon Thibodeaux he's a better athlete on the field than Travon Walker. I don't care what the testing numbers say. Thibodeaux has better juice. He's got better bend. His speed shows more. Just is. He's more productive by far. He has pass rush moves. He's been doing it longer. I don't get it at all. Doesn't make any sense to me. Kayvon Thibodeaux is edge 1 in this class. Then Arnold Ebiketie out of Penn State is definitely my guy in the way that, I don't think the gap between Ebiketie and a lot of these guys, whether it's Karlaftis or Travon Walker even, or I guess Ojabo now that he's injured, Johnson, like other than Thibodeaux and Hutchinson, I think Ebiketie is in that cluster after that. I think he's going to be a super productive player right away, really quick, really good with his hands. Not the most explosive player, not the most bendy player, but reminds me a ton of Shaq Barrett for the Bucks, who's has probably led the league in pressures if you take the last 3 years combined, I would bet. Then down the board a little bit more for the edge group, I have Christopher Allen out of Alabama, someone that was definitely in the kind of day 2 radar before his season got started. So really athletic, kind of stand-up edge type. Looked good in coverage when he got those opportunities. And his senior season, or his actually junior redshirt season, was cut short due to I think it was a foot injury. He's had a hard time staying healthy, and that's why you may have not even heard of him. But he has speed, he has bend, he's got a couple pass rush moves, he's got a cross chop. I like his game. We just didn't get to see him in his final year, but he still felt good enough to declare. So I think if you can get this guy in the 4th round, you might be stealing someone that maybe would have entered the top 10 edge conversation in this class. Then Jeffrey Gunter is way down the board out of Coastal Carolina. Similar to what we said about Jordan Tucker. I don't know if he's going to turn into anything. He probably won't. But as you're getting through all of these late round edge guys, I did feel like he had the traits. He had a little bit of power. He had different pass rush moves. Just needs to learn to, put them together more consistently and come up with a better pass rush plan. But for a 6th or a 7th round prospect, I could see him ascending to being kind of a 3rd edge rusher that can do a little bit of everything for you. Then linebacker, Leo Chenal makes my list. Didn't end up as my number 1 linebacker. I did fold and ultimately put Devin Lloyd ahead of him. But I still really believe in Leo Chenal. Athletic traits are off the charts. He compares, physically speaking, to Damarri Davis, who's been a rock star for the Saints, just as a full-size linebacker that can do everything. Run defense, rush. I do think Leo Chenal can drop into coverage and learn how to do that role a little bit more at the next level. You're projecting that for any college linebacker other than Devin Lloyd, who showed really good zone instincts. That's why I ultimately pushed him above Leo Chenal. But yeah, I think Chenal can be drafted in the 1st round to the right scheme fit, like the Patriots, for example. Then Malcolm Rodriguez out of Oklahoma State. I finally heard someone talk about it. Shout out Connor Rogers, Trevor Sikkema on the Stock Exchange podcast. But yeah, Connor threw out Malcolm Rodriguez out of Oklahoma State, who made my top 10 linebackers video a couple weeks ago. This is takey, but I think the gap between him and, say, Devin Lloyd and certainly Christian Harris is pretty small. I think, not Lloyd, sorry. People are going to freak out about that. Nakobe Dean and Malcolm Rodriguez. I would rather have Malcolm Rodriguez in the third round than Nakobe Dean in the first. I think they're similar players. They're undersized. They're both 5'11". They're both about 230 pounds. I think Malcolm Rodriguez showed similar kind of play diagnostics, that see-ball hit ball mentality that Nakobe Dean shows. Rodriguez actually ran his 40 and ran in the 4.5s. I don't think Nakobe Dean would have ran in the 4.5s. I think you can make a case that Rodriguez is actually faster. So, yeah, Malcolm Rodriguez as a kind of weak side linebacker. But he actually, I'm almost talking myself into putting Rodriguez ahead of Nakobe Dean. I think Dean just made a little bit more explosive plays, was in the spotlight a little bit more at Georgia. But anyway, Rodriguez actually showed better ability to take on blocks and get nasty in the trenches, whereas Nakobe Dean just gets flushed out in the runs. So Malcolm Rodriguez, I do think, is going to be a steal in maybe like the 4th or the 5th round. I don't know where he's going to go, but here we are 3 days before the draft. I finally heard someone talk about him. Then we have the cornerbacks. Derek Stingley makes my list. Really happy for him that he's been able to get healthy, and people are starting to talk about him again as one of the better players in this class. And I definitely feel that way. He's right at the top 5-ish for me. He is my number 1 corner. I'm willing to bet on him to get that swagger back from that amazing freshman season that he had. Been a couple rough years at LSU, but I think he is just, like a kid in a candy store getting into the NFL. His eyes are lighting up, and he can't wait to get to work as a professional football player after just 2 wasted years of his life at LSU after everybody left. And he's been dealing with injuries. Then Zyon McCollum out of Sam Houston State. If we're going to be taking Trayvon Walker number 1 overall, you got to talk about Zyon McCollum and his upside because Zyon McCollum had the best workout any cornerback has ever had. So I do think he goes in the 2nd round on draft day. And some people might call that a reach. When you do those mock draft simulators, he's always there in like the 3rd or the 4th round. I don't see it. This guy's got 4.3 speed. He's 6'2", 200 pounds, lots of experience. His entry to the NFL got delayed because at Sam Houston, they had a spring season, and then he played again in the fall, but played very well. And yeah, I think Zyon McCollum's a 2nd round pick through and through. Ton of upside. Then Jalyn Armour-Davis was proud to be one of the first people to kind of push him up into the spotlight a little bit more. He made my top 10 cornerback video. He's just, a nice projection. He's got speed, he's got length, he's got solid tape at Alabama. He's declaring early as a junior. Needs to just continue developing his route anticipation, his zone instincts, but definitely someone worth the gamble in the 3rd round. Would not be surprised at all if he developed into a starting caliber player. Then I have Damarri Mathis out of Pitt. Definitely someone getting slept on. I think one of the draft simulators actually lists him as a safety. Like, I don't get what that's about. Nope. He's an outside corner. He's a press man guy. He's physical. He's fast. He ran in the 4.4s. He's a playmaker. And he's right in the mix there with like Jalyn Armour-Davis for me. Someone that can step in and play press man coverage right away as like a dime corner. And just someone that needs to better develop his zone instincts and learn how to grab a little bit less. But definitely stands out as someone that I think can cover NFL receivers at the next level because he's got the mentality to do it, the athleticism to do it, and the technique and man coverage to do it. Just some little stuff to clean up there. Then someone I just got to a couple days ago, Cobie Durant, who I actually need to double check what school he went. I think it's South Carolina State, right? Yeah, I'm almost positive. I should have wrote it down here in my notes, but yeah, he's 5'9.5". He's about 185 pounds. Definitely undersized. He's 24 years old, so there's some knocks there. You're talking about probably a 6th or 7th round pick, maybe even an undrafted guy. But very similar to me to Darius Williams, who was, really good 2nd corner for the Rams. We're seeing a trend around the league where you can play 5'9" corners as outside corners in these Fangio tree defenses where you're not asking them to press, because if you're short, you're going to have a hard time in press coverage, right? You're usually slower because you don't have long strides and you don't have those arms to stick guys. But if you're playing off, you can have the quickness to come downfield. And a lot of times it is what it is. When you're a shorter corner, you are forced to understand the game better. You have to anticipate routes to get that extra half step and all of this stuff. So in 4 years of experience, it just all adds up and you become a much smarter player, as opposed to some guys that just kind of get by off of athleticism. And then when they get to the NFL, they have to have that learning curve. You're not going to have that learning curve with Cobie Durant. So as a late round pick, I think you're getting a special teamer and someone that in a Fangio style defense where you're running a lot of quarters and a lot of cover 3 bail or cover 3 off coverage, I think Cobie Durant can hold up and potentially do what Darius Williams did, come in as I don't know if he got drafted or not, but he was definitely not a high investment, work his way up a depth chart and maybe surprise someday. And then Demarcus Fields out of Texas Tech, he's one of the more experienced corners in this class. He's played over 3,000 snaps. And when I watched him, I felt that experience in his tape. I thought he was just kind of never panicked and always in control, made plays on the ball. Technique was really nice, but just physical limitations. He's not the biggest guy. He's like 5'11", 190, 4.48 40 time. Nowadays is like below average. If you look at this class, like everybody's running 4.4, 4.3s. I just think there's some physical limitations there, but I could definitely see him being like a 10-year player just as a veteran that's just there. Fourth corner, dime packages, emergency depth, but never anyone really ever talks about. But I felt very calm watching him play, and I think he could last as a priority free agent pickup or a 7th round pick. All right, then we have the safeties. We have Daxton Hill out of Michigan. He's one of my guys. Him and like Zion Johnson are like the two guys that I've been just totally pounding the table for. He's my number 1 safety in this class, ahead of Kyle Hamilton. I think, frankly, he's a better run defender from the safety position. Kyle Hamilton as a linebacker is a better run defender than Daxton Hill as a linebacker, but from the slot, I think Daxton Hill is better at shedding blocks. He's faster, takes better angles, and Hamilton's probably a more consistent tackler, but it's not a massive difference. So if that's where Hamilton's supposed to thrive, and I think Daxton Hill is a better man defender from that spot and a better zone defender from that spot, that's a great starting point. But then you get into the fact that Daxton Hill, he's the freak athlete at the safety position, not Kyle Hamilton. Kyle Hamilton's a good athlete for a 6'4" guy, but he has all the limitations that you'd expect for a 6'4" safety. Daxton Hill, like if you were doing like a Madden creative player and you're like, I want to make a versatile safety that can do everything, you're going to build a 6'1", 200-pound safety with 33-inch arms, which is just as long as Kyle Hamilton's arms, by the way. Like this dude is a freak that runs in the 4.3s with elite 3-cone short time shuttles that shows on field where he can run press man coverage, flip around and cover a corner route with ease, and someone with speed and anticipation to play deep free safety as well, even though he wasn't asked to do it a ton at Michigan. It's not even a competition for me. He's a better safety prospect than Kyle Hamilton. Now, if you have a unique role as a big nickel linebacker, dime safety type of deal in your defense, there's unique stuff that Kyle Hamilton can do there, but that's not even really as a true safety. So Daxton Hill is my number 1 safety in this class. He's a top 12 player, I think, on my big board right now. I think there are teams in the top 10 that could make a good pick grabbing Daxton Hill, and nobody really, I know there are some people that really like Daxton Hill, and I'm one of them. I'll just say that. Then you got to go way down the board. Quentin Lake out of UCLA. I felt like he was one of the smarter safeties in this class. And when you're watching all of these safeties, you're getting into, undrafted level guys. Most of these guys have no idea what they're doing. They don't know what they're looking at. They don't play with anticipation. They're slow to you know, their body just doesn't react fast enough. They don't mentally process things. That was the opposite with Quentin Lake. He was like a half a step ahead of the quarterback, reading the routes, reading the receiver's feet to see which direction he's going to break. From cover 2 especially, was really good as a split safety defense, but fluid hips to flip and run man coverage. Good enough tackler. I think in a hybrid split safety defense, if you're Denver, Buffalo, Green Bay, the Rams, Seattle, all these teams running the Fangio scheme right now, Quentin Lake can start day 1. Maybe will never be a quality high-end starter for you, but he can be a great backup. I'm doing 7-round mock drafts on my Patreon. Go ahead and check that out if you guys want to see some of that stuff. But for Seattle, we took Quentin Lake in like the 5th round, and it's great because in your dime packages, you can bring Quentin Lake onto the field. You put him up top there next to Quandre Diggs in cover 2 or cover 4, cover 6, whatever you want to do. Anything other than, you know, I don't think he's a great free safety from cover 3. I don't think he has the range to be a consistent high safety, but as long as you're doing split safety up top, and then you can bring Jamal Adams into the box in 3 safety packages, like that's a great role for Quentin Lake. So yeah, he's total my guy. I think 4th, 5th round, you're getting a valuable player for your defense. And those are my guys for the 2022 NFL draft. So I'm going to upload this here tonight on Monday. I'm going to do the Not My Guys tomorrow. It's going to be a shorter video. There's less people on the Not My Guys, but yeah, we're going to get this one up. Please do hit that like button. Let me know in the comments down below who your My Guys are. Who are you pounding the table for? And yeah, we'll see you guys for the next video. Thanks for watching. Peace out.